So congratulations to those who were just elected. The people who were just elected, both the vestry and diocesan delegation, they really accept a lot of responsibility and work, and so I thank you all for your willingness to run. I thank you all for the commitment to St. Michael that you will make over these next few years. Thank you very much. Now, this is an opportunity for me to kind of give you a little ministry report. What's been going on here? And a lot has happened. The last time I was able to speak with you all was in August, and in August we dealt more with vision pieces. Today I want to deal a little bit with vision, but also talk about what we have actually been doing, things done. And so the first thing I want to do is talk about the process that we've been in with the vestry and staff leadership. I hope that you all have seen over these last couple months a push through both social media and our print media to explain some of the high level, the macro goals that we are working toward, both on the vestry and on the staff level. Those macro goals, first off, are feed the Spirit, find your +1, and build the future. Those are very high, not terribly specific, and that's intentional because it allows us to then get specific as we go sort of into the weeds with the details of ministry, both with committees and also with our program staff. Those details have begun to come to fruition. And so there are some early things that we have done, goals that we are either realizing or accomplished that I wanted to make sure that you knew about. So first off, one of the smaller goals that we had that kind of filter down from those high-level imperatives is an initiative to attract, retain, and train up a really high-performance staff. And as you know, over this summer, we had a lot of opportunity to transition and welcome new people to our staff. Some of those people are new in old roles. Some of those people are filling brand new roles on the staff. And it's an exciting time to be here. We're really beginning to see a great culture shift on the staff, a lot of collaboration, a lot more unity, and that's making it a really great place to work. A few things that we will continue to do. I'm very pleased to announce that we're moving into a new direction, and one of our great staffers, Lowell Duncan, who has been serving as our Director of Communications, is going to be walking into a new role come January 1st, and that's going to be focusing on legacy living, sort of legacy gifting, and the way that we prepare for the legacy that Mary Lessman was talking about in her sermon this morning. Lowell's going to be really working with adults of all ages, 20 and up, to begin to discuss the way that we give to St. Michael, the way we invest ourselves over time, and what we can really do together over the course of our lifetime and beyond. As Christian people, being able to embrace the fact that none of us make it out of here alive. This is the first step in our walk with God, and we want to make sure that it counts as much as possible. And so I'm very excited about that because it's going to be a synthesis of lots of different initiatives that we have going on at the church level, and that will start on January 1st. Our new Director of Communications is already overlapping and kind of onboarding right now, Steve Hall, and he will be here beginning January 1st. And so it's a great way for us to transition effectively with a role that is incredibly vital to the health of our congregation going forward. Another initiative that we've been working on is developing our technology systems. Now, most of you who are real people living in the real world know that our technology systems here at the church aren't quite real world as they should, right? And one of the things that I really don't like, am I very loud? No? I'm in an echo spot then, because I seem like wow, that sounds less. Okay, yeah, you guys should try this sometime. This is a great spot. Our technology systems are not what they should be. And one of the things that bugs me is when people sort of imply or even make it real that churches are sort of not the real world, like, well, it's the church, right? About anything. And that's not okay. And so one of the things we've been doing in the last few months is we've been considering and making plans for our technology in a very broad way. We will be upgrading and renewing our Wi-Fi system. If you've ever tried to use Wi-Fi in this building, you know that there are like a dozen different ways to connect, which isn't the way it happens anywhere else. And so we're going to unify all of that. We have invested in a membership portal. So you all should have gotten an email inviting you to log in to our database where you can update your own information, where you can access your own giving records and print out statements so that you can use them for your taxes, like we've been able to do everywhere else for a decade, right? So I'm very excited about all that, and I want to give one real big thank you to Jack Rubarth, who we just named here with Diocesan as an alternate. Jack has given a huge amount of time to helping upgrade our IT, and we've actually created a new IT committee under the vestry's umbrella that will continue to move this ball forward, both as an engagement with technology so that you all are able to access what's going on here at the church faster and more efficiently, and also that we can help contact you more efficiently as well. We'll also note some technology stuff when we get to the refresh update as well. We have a new membership coordinator, as you know, Ann Schmidt, and her role has really gotten off the ground in the last couple months. She's been recruiting new greeter teams, training them up, and we are actually beginning to make plans to help the entire church embrace an evangelicalism. Evangelical, I know, is a dirty word. So we'll go with evangelism and actually make it something that we all own, right? One of the things I really want to move us towards, one of the ideas perhaps, is that when you show up on Sunday mornings, those of you who are members, you come here ready to actually meet a new person and to help welcome them and connect them to the congregation. I don't know that all of us in this room, all the members, show up here with that in mind. And I really want to begin to train us so that when we show up on Sunday mornings, that's the moment when visitors show up for the first time, and that we kind of keep our eyes out, right? And one of the things that we probably most of us in this room have experienced at least once is where you welcome someone to St. Michael who's been going here for 20 years, right? And that does not feel good. And so we're going to really begin working in both Sunday school forums and also from the pulpit to kind of train us up to make us good evangelists, right? So we know what we want to tell people. You know, one of the things that we're doing on with the vestry and the staff is creating, in essence, an elevator summary, right? I mean, I always say I am in sacred sales, right? We have a good product to sell. And I do want us to all know what it is that we are selling. And if I were to ask you all, what makes St. Michael really remarkable? It's likely that you would say something decently vague, right? It's a nice church, which is, I don't know, I mean, we like Jesus, right? I mean, which are all true, but it's also not unique enough. Right? When you're out there in the world and someone's looking for a church home, how do you differentiate St. Michael from other places? And so one of the other things that we're doing with the vestry and the staff right now is working on what we like to call remarkables. We really want to be able to distill down what makes St. Michael unique. And there are some things we do that aren't really that unique. They're good, and we can be proud of them, but lots of churches do that stuff. Then there are some things that we do really well, and we can be proud of it, that are unique. And we want to make sure that we kind of distill that down so that we're all on the same page, right? And when you are out in the world and you find out that someone's looking for a church, or you meet somebody and you think, gosh, they need a church, right? Those special people you run into in the world, then you know what to say, right? You've got a little elevator summary that you can give to those people, and you know that when you invite them here, and they show up on a Sunday morning, that all of your fellow church members are ready to receive them. Heard a great story from about 2 weeks ago when there was a couple visiting for the first time, and they had parked on the west side, and they were coming down Colgate, coming into the South Lanai door, and as they were coming in the door, someone here saw them and said, "You must be new." Yes, we are new. And he said, well, I want you to make sure that you go down this hallway and you find an usher and ask them to explain the prayer book to you so you know how to follow the worship service and everything. And the couple said, okay. So they went walking down the hallway. Someone else greeted them. They found an usher, asked them to show them the prayer book. The usher was happy to do so. And they got a prayer book and they had the bulletin. And as they were sitting in the pews before the service even started, multiple people introduced themselves to this couple visiting. And at the peace, people around them turned around to say that they had lovely singing voices. And they left that experience so full. I mean, they loved it. And these were Baptists. It was great. And they immediately emailed the church and said, we are coming back. I mean, they loved it. And how many of us would have been quite so bold walking out the door to just simply say, you look new? By the way, don't say that, all right? But it happened to work this time. There are better ways to say that. And so part of what we're going to be working toward, Ann Schmidt represents a shift toward really becoming a place where we want people in the community, right? Where we're not just simply passively open to new people, but we are actively recruiting and ushering people into the community. That takes energy, and it takes energy from all of us. And I'm excited to say that we are moving in that direction with intentionality. Formation for all ages has already begun to expand this fall. We've got our children's chapel at the 9 o'clock service in here, and if you go to the 9 a.m. service, you see all these little feet go right out the door, and we still haven't quite figured out the whole thing. I feel like there's always one child who cannot find their parents when they come back in for the piece, but you know, it is what it is. So we're very excited about children's chapel at 9 a.m. We've got our youth small groups kicking off this fall. You may have seen posters in the hallways. What we are trying to do is not just have one monolithic, homogeneous youth group. Now, we may still have that kind of experience each week, but we're trying to kind of differentiate groups, whether that's by age or gender, so that people get the sense of a small community within a larger community. And so there are little Bible studies and prayer groups that are starting throughout the week. Those of you who have teenagers have received that information, but those of you who don't, you'll see those posters up on the walls where little groups like for 9th grade boys or 7th grade girls or you name it are beginning each week to meet weekly so that we've got kind of a solid core, right? You need your 5 or 10 friends that you know will come when 100 people get together, right? And that's what we're really trying to grow, and that's already begun this fall. We've got new adult classes. Many of you have been plugging into some of our adult classes that are either in the morning with Bible studies or in the evenings, and those classes are really well attended. I mean, I've been super pleased at how many people have been coming to those classes. And so we're also beginning to consider if there might need to be more than just classes during the week for adults, particularly adults who travel. I mean, my own daughter has been in multiple lacrosse tournaments on Sunday mornings last couple weeks. She just didn't go this morning because that's enough, and she needs to go to church. And so how can we begin to help people, especially adults, connect with the community throughout the week so that we don't just make it Sunday specific, but that we allow people those access points throughout the week. And we've begun to do that with multiple new Bible studies and classes this fall, and they're really well attended, and I'm excited about that. We've also begun to push toward collaboration. So any of you involved with the Prime Timers, which is our group of adults who are no longer raising children, you may remember that the Prime Timers just a few weeks ago welcomed the Dallas Zoo here on campus. And in addition to the Prime Timers, we had the St. Michael preschool come and do the same thing with the zoo. And I cannot tell you how cute it was to see our Prime Timers and our preschoolers out in the garden cloister petting turtles and, you know, feeding birds, and I don't know, I'm sure there were snakes and other things like that. I really wasn't there, but I saw the pictures and it was great. And so trying to collaborate between different groups so that no one group stands alone has really begun to blossom as well. Finally, with our worship and our music, very excited at what's been going on, especially with music. This summer, we transitioned our entire music staff, and so now we've got our traditional music leaders, Jonathan, Ryan, and Glenn Stroh, who have already made an impact both with just the feel of the choir. I mean, those of you who have been coming for years, to me, there is a marked difference between this year and last year, just with sort of the presence of the choir in the worship services. And then, if you were at the 9 o'clock service, you saw our parade of our little choristers, which is super. The formal program, the Royal School of Church Music, won't start until next fall, but we just kind of said, hey, anyone want to sing? And we've had 20 kids who have been showing up on Wednesday nights in and out. And you saw a little parade this morning. One of our young kids who wasn't in the choir said she counted 75 people in the procession this morning. So we love a parade. Episcopalians love a parade. And so that's really exciting. And we're doing the same kind of exciting stuff in our contemporary worship as well. Justin Brooks has arrived, and he has really kind of renewed the experience of worship in the contemporary service, and to the point where that, coupled with the redesign of the space downstairs, has made it, I mean, multiple people have said to me, I'm excited to invite people to come to this service now. The music is great, the preaching's always been good, and now the space looks great too. And so we're really kind of getting all of these things moving, and momentum is building in all these different spaces, which is great. Which dovetails into a refresh update. So refresh has really gotten off the ground. You all, I hope, saw that the creation, if you hadn't noticed, the creation window's not there. It is now in Waco being renewed and cleaned up and reformed. We were able to expand the refresh because everyone was so generous to every single worship space in the church. And so if you've been into the St. Michael Chapel in the last few weeks, you know that the narthex has been closed because the angel doors in the rear of the chapel are being repaired. The wooden frames of those doors could not support the weight of the center glass that was so beautiful, and so they've been completely taken down. And of course, like with any construction project, once you start, you find more things that you need to do. And so there's a rebuild of the entire structure that those doors rest on. And this is excellent because those doors aren't that old, but they weren't quite made to last 100 years. They are this time. And so these craftsmen are coming in and really making these things solid. That will also expand to the red door outside the chapel, where the glass will be taken out and the entire wooden frame and door will be replaced because it has begun to rot, and it shouldn't. And so we're able to take care of some of our spaces with a lot of intentionality. And as I mentioned, well, first off, technology. If you've noticed, we've got a few new cameras in this space. The bride's room, if you haven't been yet, has been completely outfitted to be the control room for our live streaming. Every Sunday, we've got 400 to 500 people watching our services live, and then more people after that. I would really love to make sure to grow that by tenfold, right? I'd love to have 5,000 people every Sunday watching our services live, to be the Episcopal Church in this country that serves all the Episcopalians who can't get to their home church on any given Sunday, right? It's great for our members who aren't here, whether they're traveling or they're homebound, but it's a gift, a huge gift, to all of the Episcopalians around the country and the world who don't have a church they can either get to. This is an aside, but it's hard for us to necessarily grasp that for most Episcopalians, they do not have churches with staff that can really give them great worship experiences. Most of the churches in the country struggle to keep even a priest on staff. Many don't have anybody at all. And so they may only have Eucharist once a month in rotation because they're in areas of the country that are either not greatly populated or else struggling in other ways. We can be a gift to them through their computer, and we want to make sure that that experience is excellent. Right now it's good, and it's consistent, which is almost even more important. But by creating a really excellent product, we're going to be able to engage people more. And so that's that engagement technology that I'm very excited about. So things like when someone's reading a scripture passage, the words of the scripture passage are on the screen as well for people who may have trouble hearing. When we're collecting an offering here, you can click on the screen through PayPal and make an offering there, right? So all of this stuff is the way it should be, right? We want people to engage with what we are doing here in all ways. and that technology is going to be really beneficial. And then finally, in the Parish Hall, if you haven't been down, last Sunday was the first Sunday where the room was flipped. So people are facing away from the windows and toward what used to be the wall of refrigerators. But now you can't see them anymore because there's a great curtain, there's a reredos that has been created, the stage has been expanded, the screens and the lighting has all been redone. And so if you haven't been down, make a little trip at some point in the next few weeks to see just how much better that space looks, which will help us grow that service even more. In addition to refresh, stewardship is happening right now, and we just last Sunday had our Stewardship Sunday, and I'm super excited to tell you that things are going very well. I mentioned that in the announcements this morning at 9 o'clock. I'll say it again at 11, but we have received a lot of new gifts. We have received many increases. More than 75% of the pledges that we've received so far are increases year over year. And so if you're sitting in the pews thinking, I really like what's going on, or I really like what they want to do in the next year, will I be alone in increasing my gift? The answer is no. So go for it, right? If you've not made your pledge yet, we really do this over the course of weeks, although we always ask for people to do it within a few weeks. And those pledges we will continue to receive. And so thank you if you've already pledged. And if you haven't yet, know that you are not alone this year. We've had many new pledges, new ever, to St. Michael. And plus we've got some people who used to pledge years and years ago who are back and pledging again. And so the momentum is very good, but we still need you. It's not something we can rest on our laurels, right? We are moving forward, and we've got good momentum, and everybody's got to jump in to keep that momentum going. Finally, campus update, right? For those of you who've been around for years and years, you know that there's always been this idea that we're going to do something with our campus, right? Something is going to change here at some point. And so last August, and even in May, we've sort of said that stuff will happen at some point. But the one big thing there were really two big things we were waiting on that both happened this summer. The first is that we needed to know when the lower school of the Episcopal School of Dallas, of ESD, was going to be joining the main campus out on Midway. And so we finally found out that they really will be building out their campus up on the main campus, and that the lower school will be gone by the summer of 2020. I think ESD corporately is hoping that they might leave as early as the summer of 2019. But as you know, construction is never predictable. And so we're kind of trying to be conservative with that and say that by the summer of 2020, everything should be solid. Once that domino falls, we'll be able to use the current space that is occupied by the lower school of ESD to expand the St. Michael Episcopal School, which has really been going well. And when that school is able to expand, it kind of lets us do some stuff with our property. In addition to that, the other big thing that we needed to identify this summer was the kind of desire, or the hopes and dreams of what Preston Center was going to be. And most of you who follow this know that the Preston Center Task Force was formed a while back to try and identify what's the future of Preston Center, right? Rather than it being just this mishmash of traffic and, parking is terrible, where are we going, right? What do we want this space to be? That report did not hit until the summer. Once that report hit, we were able to then look at the desires of our neighbors, right? This is all rooted in the idea that we want to be good neighbors, right? We in this church want to make sure that our neighbors at ESD are happy, that our neighbors, not only just across Colgate, but in this entire region are also happy. And so what do they want? And now that we know that Preston Center Task Force has identified some of the desires for the future of this whole area, we've been able to reimagine what could happen on our campus because of those desires. And so rather than just doing stuff that we want, we've been able to meet what we want based on the parish survey. Those of you who've been here for years know there was a big survey a few years ago, and all of that information was gathered together, sort of the desires of this congregation, and try to match them with the hopes and dreams of our neighbors. And so we are working right now with some different concepts to try and match the desires that we have as a congregation with the desires that our neighbors have for what this whole area, this community will be. And so we hope to give some specificity very soon, at least by next February. So the annual meeting next February, where we look at the finance and the budget of the church, we'll be able to give you all some more concrete information by then. It should be before then, but at least it will be by that February meeting. So just so you know, things are still working with some conceptual ideas based on that parish survey. So we have a lot of information about what the parish desires, and also trying to be pragmatic to say that the neighbors want these handful of things for the future of this whole area. And we can really take the lead in providing a space that makes their hopes and dreams really a reality to help move Preston Center forward for the next century. And that's very exciting. And so I look forward to telling you all about that very soon. That brings me to the end of what I was going to tell you all, because like I said, I didn't actually think that the election moment was going to be quite as fast as it was. So before, we have maybe 5 or 8 minutes. Are there any questions that you all have about anything that I ran through that I might be able to unpack a little bit more for you?
So when I hear you talk about evangelism, you're talking about making people who already show up here feel welcome to be here. What are we doing to help train us to lay people to go out and have discussions just kind of in love with people about who Jesus Christ is and why he's the right answer, etc.?
Great question. Okay, so the question was, although good voice because he's a singer. So evangelism is, I think, really our future, right? We can talk a lot about the details of programs and things like that, but the evangelism is really where the rubber hits the road, right? We have inherited the greatest story ever told. And what I like to say is, if a church is not connecting with the community around it, it's not the story's problem, it's the storytellers, right? We are the storytellers, right? We've inherited that story. It is our responsibility together to go out and tell that story and really inspire people to connect to that story. And so specifically, we've got maybe 2 things. I heard 2 things in that question. The first was helping the people who already come feel really connected, right? It's likely that the people who come feel welcome, or they would not come back. But feeling welcome and feeling connected is very different. And many of you know, because this is a larger congregation, that you can worship here for years and years and years and still not feel really deeply connected. So there is a process that we have to build out, and we are working on that connection piece where people really are integrated into this community so that it's not left up to you to make that happen, right? Some of you will make that happen. I mean, I know some of you, and you'll just make it happen. But many people out in the community just won't kind of bulldog their way into the community. And we've got to help them, right? We cannot expect that will happen for most people. And so taking people who are here now, who may have been here for a decade or more, and identifying that they are not as deeply connected as they should be is going to be a very important thing, because that kind of integration model is going to be critical to sustained growth, right? We're all familiar with churches or any organization that might have some ecstatic growth for a time, and then something happens and boom. The sustained growth that I'm looking for, that I hope we're all looking for, is stuff that takes years of investment and formation to achieve, right? And if you're not deeply rooted and connected, then it's easy to kind of drift away. And I don't want people drifting away. I want when people show up here and worship here that this becomes their church, the end. And I think that integration model is going to help us when we go out and begin inviting people in. So that's a complex shift that we have to make, because it is both those of us here going out and inviting people, and it's also advertising what we have. And advertising, branding, marketing are things that churches don't often like to talk about. I love that stuff. And we're going to be moving in that direction, not all at once, but slowly adding all of that to what we do here. People out in the community need to know what we are doing here. And whether that's through activities in the community and making sure when we do good stuff in the community that we get, I won't say the credit, but we get the story told, right? We need to tell stories more. And so you may have noticed some of the stewardship videos that we created this fall are moving in the direction of storytelling. We are also going to be doing more things this spring where we're gathering together the stories of the people who really built St. Michael and the people doing stuff out in the community. And it's going to be lots of videos because that's just the way that people engage now. We'll write it up too, but the videos are really what kind of catch people's imagination with the visuals that they get to see. It is very likely, we haven't necessarily nailed this down yet, but it's our thought internally, the clergy and others, that the Easter season this year is going to become kind of an evangelism workshop, right? In the scope of a church year, new people, new families tend to show up in the fall. And when those new families show up, it's almost like New Year's, right? Where you're going to get on the diet sort of thing. You know, families back to school, they're like, we're going to go to church, right? And so they show up in the fall and they slowly start to lose their momentum, right? When you get to Easter and Easter season, the people in church at Easter are the core, right? They are the people. And so it seems like it's an appropriate opportunity for us to take 6 or 7 weeks where we really talk about what we together will do. And when I say techniques about evangelism, I really do mean we're going to talk about this is how you greet someone you think is new. This is how you tell the story to a friend or a neighbor or a coworker or the random person in the checkout line at the grocery store. This is how you say it, right? And we'll tell you stories about other people in this church who are doing just that. We've got a handful of people in this church who are true evangelists, who almost weekly are bringing somebody to church with them. So it's not that it's not happening, but I don't want it to be an exception. I want it to be the rule, where we all feel empowered to go out and tell people about what we're doing here. And so that takes some formation, right? If I were to say to you, explain Christianity to me, you know, that might be a little hard for everybody. And so Bible studies, like what we're doing right now with many of our adults, hundreds every week in this church are going to Bible studies during the week. That's beginning to plant the seeds of the words that we need to articulate the mission here, so that it's not just us saying, well, the church is pretty. Instead, we're really owning that we're doing something here that is both sacred and holy. We are saving ourselves with Christ, right? I mean, we are Christ to one another, and we are being saved from a life of self-centeredness and from a life that the world would have us be pulled all the way over to something that is, you know, both self-centered and self-righteous and all these ugly things. We're being saved from that stuff. We're coming here to make sure that we are generous and kind and loving, and that is inconvenient, and we're supposed to do it anyway because we were loved first. And if we can begin to articulate that stuff for ourselves and own it, we may even try things like testimonials, right? How many of you have ever done a testimonial? All right, just know that I saw those hands. So, it's important for us to be able to say why this is important to us. That is not something most of us have ever done. Even though we love our church, and we love Jesus, and we love the people here, most of us have never actually said to another person, why? If we can begin to practice that why, it will change this place huge. It will be huge. And so I'm real excited. That was the best question that we could have gotten. and it is 10:45. Sorry. I have to go so the choir can get ready for what we're doing next, and that the new vestry can meet in the chapel conference room. So if you were just elected to the vestry or are on the vestry, chapel conference room for 5 minutes, and I promise you'll be done for the 11 o'clock services. Thank you all so much for coming this morning. I look forward to the future.